Freemasonry stresses it is not a religion, only that its members must be male, over 21, and believe in a god, any god. Freemasons of different faiths pray together to a supreme being, who is referred to as the great architect of the universe. We asked Jane Furbank, as a psychologist and a woman, for her thoughts on the great architect.
Well, this is obviously a biased point of view, but he sounds to me rather a masculine sort of god. There seems to be very little talk about the more spiritual side, or what you might describe as the more feminine side of religion. There's no Freemason equivalent of the Virgin Mary, for example. This god requires you to stand up straight, to make certain very precise gestures, you know, to talk a great deal about being straight and level and square. Not round, you notice, but square. If you look at the psychology of symbols, you'll find roundness is the mind, the spirit, is wholeness, and squareness is much more order, material, physical world.
Why do men continue to join Freemasonry in the face of suspicion, even outright condemnation? It's difficult for outsiders not to think that self-interest and career considerations must play a part. Certainly the view persists that the code of mutual aid in the ritual can lead to brother Masons combining to the detriment of non-Masons. Those Masonic bonds of preferment seem to apply in unlikely places. Ex-Detective Sergeant John Simons was a Freemason when he was in the Metropolitan Police. Later he went to prison, convicted of soliciting a bribe.
Freemasonry is rife in prison. I spent some time in an open prison where I witnessed, contacts between Masonic prisoners and Masonic prison warders, and Masonic prisoners were getting special visits and having parcels left by the gate and all this sort of business.
But Masonic prisoners may enjoy more than special privileges. Informal lodge meetings are held in Britain's jails, as one bemused inmate discovered.
I go to the meeting, and there is the chaplain and the deputy vicar from outside, two or three prison officers, and maybe half a dozen prisoners.
T. Dan Smith, one-time boss of Newcastle City Council, had been sentenced to 6 years jail in 1976 for corruption. He was not a Freemason.
I just didn't know what the hell I'd put myself into. And within minutes, obviously they knew that I didn't know what I was doing there, and that I wasn't a Mason. And consequently, they were considerable annoyance. The chaplain of all people said, oh, this is outrageous. What? Oh, how wide and that. And of course, I was out in 2 seconds flat. But by then, of course, I knew what the score was.
Contrary to many Masons' belief, nothing in their vows forbids them telling outsiders that they are Masons. Yet as long as most refuse to admit membership, they will encounter suspicion that they used Masonry to combine clandestinely and to scratch each other's backs.
I don't mind mutual sustenance, and certainly I positively like charitable organisations which provide a service, and many of the lodges, much of Freemasonry does that and concentrates on that. It's when it becomes something more than that, not only a means of serving the community, but of serving themselves, that it becomes worrying.
This concern about the Brotherhood has recently been reflected nationwide. In the last 5 years, in response to local allegations of Masonic skullduggery, councils from Liverpool and Manchester to Worthing and Southend have expressed grave misgivings about Freemasonry. Questions have been asked in Parliament, and police committees up and down the country have debated Masonic influence within the police force.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Islington Police Community Consultative Group.
During the next 5 weeks, this series will investigate public concern about the Brotherhood. Freemasons claim to occupy higher moral ground than non-Masonic outsiders, but a constant flow of allegations suggests that Freemasonry may be a perfect vehicle for corruption. Corruption in law enforcement, in local government, and in business. Overseas, it has even been used to subvert democracy. Next week, we investigate the unacceptable convergence of Freemasonry and corruption in Britain's police forces.